I get the feeling right now that there is a crisis of conscience happening in the West, a crisis of meaning. I see it particularly among young people. I think that it's manifested itself in this new attempt to, by young people particularly, to claw their way back to some sort of philosophy that provides meaning for them. And you're seeing people clawing in every direction. So you're seeing a lot of folks who are redounding to Jordan's worldview that there is something worth fighting for here. And while he and I and you and he may disagree on how far that goes, we agree probably on 8 of the 10 steps that you need to get to, the final 2 being you need to believe in God and you need to believe in a moral system springing from God. But he may disagree with that, although he's never been like incredibly clear on that. And then there are people who are clawing their way back to meaning through partisan tribalism, which is I'm just going to find the group that believes most like me and I will find meaning in my life by clubbing the crap out of people who I don't like. All of this speaks to me of a problem that actually did exist in the Enlightenment, and that was that the Enlightenment didn't necessarily want to discard God or Judeo-Christian morality, but it ended up doing so.
That's right.
And so we've been living off of these fundamental premises of religion for 200 years while simultaneously undermining religion itself. So we've been saying reason means everything. Well, where does reason come from? And why isn't it just random synapses firing in your brain that are evolutionarily beneficial? We believe in a predictable universe that we can explore through science. What makes you believe in a predictable universe? Where are you getting that from? Why isn't it just us theorizing and then some theories work and some theories don't? And where do you get the idea that there is a good and there is a bad? Where do you get the idea of any sort of directional human living? Where are you getting all of these ideas? And folks who don't believe in a Judeo-Christian foundation for our civilization, I don't know how they answer that question. And I think most people don't know the answers. And so what we've fallen into is sort of either a passionate rejection of the question itself, as in, the Bible's stupid, all of this is stupid, I don't really care, so your question's stupid, so I'm just going to do what I want to do, and I'll ignore the question, or engaging with the question, which inevitably takes you to nihilism if you actually can't find meaning anywhere. It seems to me that's sort of the split.
I think that one of the problems, too, is that nobody is engaged with the question of whether, and this is what I believe atheism is obsolete. I believe it actually made sense after Newton. You know, one of the reasons the Romantics hated Newton is they feared that by the logic of his science, he had taken the fantastic and the beautiful and the spiritual out of life. And the Romantic poets, Wordsworth and Keats, would toast long life to Newton and confusion to mathematics because they didn't, they thought that he was taking the enchantment out of life.
Right, it's like baseball fans who hate Bill James.
Exactly. No, but exactly like that. But the thing is, that made sense at that point to think like, well, here he's gotten logic for this, so eventually we're going to have this clockwork universe where everything is going to hold together. But in fact, along the way, if you've paid attention, that clockwork universe has started to get a little weird. That we have effects at the quantum level that don't make any sense at all in terms of clockwork, interplays between consciousness and reality that really do, to me, suggest an idea of consciousness at the very beginning of creation. We have this other idea that suddenly, when I say that life is good, and that implies a lot of philosophical problems, one of them is, how can there possibly be life? The odds against there being life are fantastic. And so guys like Pinker have invented this completely bogus idea that there are infinite universes. And this just happens to be the universe.
Right, it's an unfalsifiable thesis, which means it's unscientific by nature.
I know, it is not science. Well, they used to say that religious people had a God of the gaps.
Right, this is a God of the gaps.
But this is religion, science of the gaps, And there's that, and then there's this other thing, which essentially is faith, which is the idea that we're living in kind of a computer simulation, which just means that God is a little nerd sitting there somewhere.
Really, he's a 400-pound man sitting there.
And so it's actually that our narrative has not caught up with our knowledge. I think our knowledge has gone beyond the fact where we have to deduce an atheistic clockwork world. And it's dangerous. I think that you and I both believe this. It is a dangerous place to live without meaning. One of the things that truly bothered me about Pinker's work, and I don't mean to pick on him.
But you know his stuff, so he's the stand-in for a school of philosophy.
Exactly. Right. And I think he's a man of goodwill, writing what he thinks and all this. But he denigrates intellectuals who say, we've got a problem coming up. He says this is kind of natural for intellectuals to do, to see a crisis everywhere. He says we've gotten to the point where we have to talk about a serious crisis just to make sure people understand what we're saying. And every time I would read that, I would think about the Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, which was the last time that civilization was at this pinnacle. I mean, just an amazing pinnacle that it had never been at before in England, but in Europe throughout. And they asked the poet Kipling to write about it, and he wrote that famous poem, Recessional, where he said, you know, Lord God of hosts, be with us yet, lest we forget, if we leave God behind. And he was no great believer of Kipling, but he said, if we leave God behind, we'll collapse. Now, that's the kind of prediction that Pinker laughs at. But 17 years later, which is nothing, 17 years later, after this pinnacle of civilization, 30 years of absolute total war took place that wiped the high culture of Europe off the map. The high culture of Europe ends in 1914 to 1945 with one of the worst cataclysms of evil that has ever taken place in the history of humankind, followed by, because of this anti-Christian philosophy of Nazism, followed by these decades of mass murder in the name of this atheist philosophy of communism that suggests to me that the Enlightenment narrative is not quite everything that it cracked up to be. And so I think this is a serious crisis. I think that, personally, I think that Immanuel Kant, at the very beginning of the Enlightenment, saw it coming and gave us a roadmap to a different way of thinking about religion, a different way of thinking about both Judaism and Christianity, which is the way that I think about it, is almost in terms of language and storytelling, that yes, we are flesh and blood. Yes, we are a flesh bag of chemicals, but you're also Ben. And you are the language that speaks to me and to you of Ben. You are a word, like your flesh, your body is a word, meaning Ben. And that Ben is as real in the noumenal world, or in the mind of God, if you want, as this flesh and blood. Everything about the words coming out of my mouth is physical. My brain is sparking, my lungs are pushing and all. But the ideas that I'm expressing aren't physical at all. And they're either true or they're false. And they're false whether I speak them or not. And all of that is really, to me, what the Christian story is. It's the Word being made flesh. It is the life of God becoming seeable, realizable, which I think each of us is at some level. And I think it's why Jesus spoke in parables. It's not because of necessarily the meaning of the parables, but the mechanism of the parables. Once you accept the mechanism that I can tell you a story, a man's son ran away and then came back and he welcomed him back. I can tell you that story, and you hear moral meaning in it. You know that it has moral meaning. Once you do that, you accept that your life is like that too. It is a physical story with a moral meaning. And to me, that's all, in a way, when Moses stands before the burning bush and he sees this eternal thing of destruction and creation, with a growing bush, and it says, I am an I. That to me is what this is all about. And it's completely believable. It is completely believable in the realm of science. You don't have to eliminate science. You don't have to make up, magic stories about lost bunnies. You don't have to do anything like that to understand that this world that we're living in is a world of morality and meaning, and it cannot be that way without the God we know.